All right, let me get everything loaded up while we're waiting to make sure that it is actually live. Oh crap, I didn't bring my glasses. Hang on a minute. All right, I need that. All right, it does indeed look like we are live.
Okay. Yep,
So,
there it is.
yeah, I'll give it just a minute to populate out. Let everybody
There we go.
let everybody start coming in. If anybody even comes in, who knows?
We'll get somebody.
Might just be me and you talking to each other.
It's all right. We do that quite often. We're good at it. At least we agree
Yeah,
on it. We don't have to put up with everybody's riffraff, and we use it. We always agree on things. So
this is true. All right, I'm just clearing out some emails. Let's see. All
got a
right.
couple of people in the
There we go.
chat. Hey guys.
Man. There we
Dave, Fast Guy,
go.
Ed Cannon, Cammy Martins.
All right. Well, we're going to go ahead and get started, and anybody that comes in late can just replay it and catch up because I don't want to be too late tonight on here because I don't know about you, but I'm a little bit tired.
I'm with you.
um, so basically, what we wanted to talk about, guys, is something that I've noticed and seen. Pretty sure Noel has too, where folks tend to just copy whatever the latest thing is. So, for example, for 20 plus years of global war on terror, everybody tried to copy like all the SF guys, the door kickers, you know, all the cool guys. That's what everybody just copied. They copied the way they had their rifles set up. They copied the way they had their gear set up. They copied their clothing. They copied their tactics and techniques, everything, irregardless if it was actually applicable and appropriate for them and their situation. For us, primarily as just armed prepared citizens. So, yes, zombie. In fact,
Yeah, hey, zombie. Zombie's
I
on
was
fire.
sitting here reading it while we were getting ready, zombie.
Yeah.
Um, so, what seems to be the case now that I noticed in the last year and a half or so is that everybody is suddenly, and I say everybody generically speaking, making this shift to copying and worrying about planning around everything going on in Ukraine. They are suddenly going back to different kind of gear setup, different rifle setups. There's this huge focus in the preparedness community on uh, drones and countering drones, and I'm seeing a ton of time and money and energy invested in that. I've even seen guys going back and talking about learning trench warfare and everything. Now, I'm not saying that learning and knowing all that stuff is wrong or bad. having knowledge and experience is never a bad thing. It's all about, is it applicable for you in your situation, and how much time, energy, and money do you want to dump at it? I'll give you one example. I alluded to this in a video a few days back about using METTC when you're thinking about how you're setting up your stuff, what you're planning for, how you're planning, how you're going to equip yourself. And that it's primarily around the defensive side of things, or not always defensive. Sometimes it's going to be offensive, but let's just say the martial side of things. But that also goes to, equally importantly, just your everyday living side of things, right? Um, Planning around how you're going to grow, prepare, store, handle your food, your water, all of that. So that it can apply to everything. But for this sake of this discussion, we're talking about the martial side. And for example, one of the things I see a whole lot of people spending a whole lot of time and money on is drone defense and countering drones, because it's all the big rage and the big thing right now over in Ukraine, and has been for a year and a half or so now. Now, I'm not saying that you shouldn't give thought to that and kind of have it in your head. Drones are pretty proliferous now. However, it seems like people have just gone like, I mean, they've gotten wrapped around the axle at like 200 miles an hour and haven't really sat down and thought through the METTC side of that. Of, okay, who is my primary threat concern? And like, Nolan and I have talked about this ad nauseum, and we've got a list of threat concerns. Our primary one up at the top, that's the biggest, most likely, it's the most likely threat, the most dangerous threat, and the largest numerical threat, is literally going to be the hungry, starving, sick hordes that are come pouring out of every major city when there's no more food, no more water, no more sanitation, etc. I know everybody is worried about the almighty imperial federal government. And I've said before, you have to have that as a concern. But even then, and I'm focusing on the drone thing just because it's a specific point that Nolan and I can cover and talk about. The government is not going to waste a valuable drone and or munitions on it, like what's being done in Ukraine, to take out one or two guys trying to feed their livestock and grow some food out in the middle of the boonies. It's a poor waste of limited resources for the government. Personally, government's way down on my list. There's just not enough of them. Again, as we've discussed before, look, all the branches combined and everybody in each branch, about 1.5 million people. Let's just be generous and say 2 million, right? Probably every major city in the country has got that many people in it or close to it. Continental United States is too big for the government to try to control. There, in a total grid down situation, which is the only reason we'd be doing this stuff anyway. They're going to be doing everything they can to control a couple of big areas for themselves, such as a couple of major cities, ports, airports, that sort of thing. And that's all they're going to be able to do, no matter what they want to do. However, that 1.5 million starving people in every major city, they're going to suddenly become a threat when they're hungry, they're desperate, they're sick, and there ain't no law and order, no threat of jail, no 911, no threat of that. So if that's our threat, that's our primary concern. When it comes to spending a lot of time and money on the drone thing, think about the majority of the population. Where are those people going to get drones that are capable of carrying a weapon? Because Every little one you buy off Amazon ain't capable of carrying an actual lethal weapon. And if they do have one like that, where are they going to get the actual lethal weapon part of that from? There's not a whole lot of RPG warheads laying around and C4 and all that they can strap onto them to fly into you and blow you up. It works over in Ukraine because Russia and Ukraine have got factories pumping all that stuff out for the war effort left and right. For us, not so much, because it don't matter who the threat is, and it don't matter if it's Jerome from the hood or Bubba Joe from the trailer park meth house. Those kind of people don't have the money or the experience to buy the kind of drone capable of doing that, much less get the dangerous stuff.
Yep.
You might have to worry about somebody that snatches one out of Walmart and figures out how to use it and maybe wants to go do air reconnaissance. But even then, you're talking a pretty limited range on those non higher end drones. And again, all they might be able to discover is, oh, well, there's some guys growing some food over there. Maybe we ought to go try to take it. And if you're doing your security and stuff right, you should either A, know that the drone's there, or B, be such a porcupine that if they do see it, they're like, no, we need to go on somewhere else. That's going to be too much trouble to try to take. So rambling through all of that, now that I can let Noel get a word in as edgewise, is don't just copy everything, guys. Don't worry about what the Ukrainians and the Russians are doing in trench warfare unless you realistically think you're going to be in trench warfare. I mean, if if you do, I mean, like say you've got a nice rural retreat and you're where you can dig down in the ground and have defensive trenches and they don't fill up with water, then knock yourself out. Go figure out how to fight from the trenches. If you don't, maybe you ought to kind of focus on your individual terrain and area and SOP. No, I'm
So,
going to
yeah, so I just jump in here. You brought up some great points, John. You know, we don't want to copy what the military does in a certain area of operation. For instance, well, jump back, let's say in Vietnam, they fought differently than they did, say, in Afghanistan. So even the military changes what it does to react to what type of enemy. Well, we can throw MET T out. You guys need to learn what MET T is. And I don't think we want to go over all of it like right now, but you need to understand that acronym will help you plan for your environment. But the military changes, or our army, I'll say, changes what it does in reference to the enemy's tactics, the terrain, the troops they have available, the time it has, all these things. All right, it changes. So why don't we? All right. So if you see the pictures of guys sitting around Afghanistan with cool stuff on, that may not be applicable to what you have for one available to you and what you need in your environment. Meaning, all right, so let's say there's a group out in Arizona, all right, that group in Arizona is going to have a different set of equipment. They don't have water. You go over here in Alabama where I'm at, I throw a rock and I'm hitting the stream every 2 seconds, okay? So they're going to be packing heavy on water. They're going to have different camouflage, so forth and so on. Us here in Alabama, we're going to have woodland camo where they're going to have desert camo. All right, we don't have to pack the water, but maybe we have to pack other things. Okay, so don't look at the pictures. Take it for what it is. All right, get some ideas of what the newest maybe equipment is, but that doesn't always mean it's going to be the best in your area of operation. But one thing I do want to say, in every single live stream we have, I say, don't just sit there, go out and do it. If you have the ability, if you're young enough, I would suggest some of you guys go ahead and join the military. All right, most of the group that we have done that. All right, and we learn that stuff. Go to Ranger School, go to Special Forces, go to SEAL training, go do something. All right, that'll give you a base of knowledge. If you don't want to do that, I would suggest going to First Shepherd. We got a guy in our group that went to First Shepherd, and he's as sharp as anybody I've seen in the military, right? But you got to go out and figure out what you got to figure out the tactics, what your area of operation is giving you, and then have your equipment respond to it. John made a great point with just bringing out the drones. The drones work in that environment because it's trench warfare. All right. Well, I don't want to do trench warfare. I don't know about you guys. That would really suck. All right. But we don't plan on doing trench warfare. All right. So we don't have to have a drone with an artillery piece on it or something like that. All right. So use your brain. Also, learn your craft. Learning your craft will allow you to operate in your environment and delineate which equipment you need. Get yourself a Ranger handbook. All right. Understand what it means. Understand guerrilla warfare, because that's basically what you're doing. All right. So you're going to have to learn some lessons. You're going to have to figure out what works best in your area, and you're going to have to have a little bit of a base knowledge of some tactics in order to apply that equipment. So that's kind of my 2 cents of it. I don't know if all that makes sense, but you got to know your environment. You got to know your capabilities. You got to have some training, because we get together, we train, and when we're not together, I work out, I do training, I do use a firearm, whatever. But you got to react to your environment. So
Yeah, it's again, that's kind of the whole point of not just doing what everybody else is doing. That's why I mentioned in other videos. Look, even when I'm doing videos and showing you stuff, don't don't just copy what I'm telling you, or any other person on YouTube or social media for that matter is telling you. You got to tailor everything around your area,
mm-hmm.
um, because it's got to be around your environment, your network and group, whether you're by yourself or got 100 other people with you. That's going to be unique to you, as well as the environment, the time of year, the terrain, so on and so forth. Um, Short of some really good thermal, and even then, it would be pretty difficult. Um, a lot of our area is pretty hard to see anything overhead with, because it's thick, like
Very
thick
thick.
enough thick enough that even thermal has a hard time, because we've played with thermal from a ground level, and you disappear pretty fast, not too far away, in the terrain. So, you know, water. We've talked about that, but it's worth mentioning again. Where Noel's at, where I'm at, where we plan on being at, God forbid, um, we've got water. We're tripping over water. So we need a lot of water because of the heat and the humidity 3/4 of the year. So the two things that we do is we have to be able to carry a lot with us, because we're going to drink a lot of it. But B, what does help mitigate that is having a filter or something, that because we've got plenty of places to stop and fill up at along the way.
Mm-hmm.
There's no concern about that. It's just we got to have something to filter it with and go. So, you know, other areas, like for example, if you're out in the Midwest, there might not be water for 50 miles. You may literally have to carry every ounce you can with you,
Yeah.
just to do anything. And we're not talking, Mad Max bugging out, but just working in and out and around your place, doing the normal daily tasks that you're going to have to do, because you're going to do a whole lot more of those daily tasks than
Yeah.
you do anything else.
Some of the
Um,
special operations units that got inserted into Iraq literally carried 5-gallon water cans because that's all they had. So they reacted to their environment. They knew what they were going into, and it's not
Right.
fun.
No. And you know, we've discussed this before. On the gear side, you've got to tailor your gear. And I know that everybody from GWAT has suddenly got this thing that you've got to be armored up like a turtle. And if you're kicking doors and riding around in vehicles, or if you're just standing around, that's great. If you're out moving around doing much of anything, at least not in our area, you will not be wearing all that stuff. I know there's this propensity of risk aversion. Oh, I've got to be armored up. I got to be armored up. Well, there's a whole lot of areas on your body that armor doesn't cover. It makes you ridiculously hot. It's extra weight and extra fatigue, and it slows you down.
Yeah.
It doesn't
Well,
matter
just
how.
just that one video that we made, walking through the woods with our equipment on, it was hot, and I mean, we only went and we didn't have that much on our back, and with that humidity, I'm like, you have body armor on, yeah. I mean, you better have a reason for it, you
And I
know.
don't care how much of a stud you are, right? However fast and mobile you are as the super stud with the body armor and all that on, you're still going to be faster with it off. So
Mhm.
you got the tailor. I'm not saying not have body armor. I'm not saying that's not a thing. I'm just saying use it for the appropriate times. Like if we were standing around pulling guard duty or something at a fixed location, armor up. Probably going to have a chair there to sit in or something.
Mhm.
Standing under the shade, not doing a whole lot. I'm a stationary target. If I'm out moving, especially in our terrain, and I ain't in a vehicle, it's I'm going as light and fast as I can.
Yeah.
Again, think of going in that MET-TC format. If you do go out, like because you have to patrol your area. In fact, I was literally just talking with Randall over at Grunt Proof this morning a little bit about this. You have got to go out and patrol your area. I don't care if it's just your subdivision,
Yep.
if it's your big rural retreat, whatever. You've got to
100%.
go out and patrol it because if you don't, you will not know what's going on around you. And Randall made a good point. I'm just going to share a part of our conversation we had that because he sees it as well. That there's going to be too many people that think that when it all goes bad, and they've got their little fenced off place or whatever, that they're going to be sitting inside with the generator running, watching DVDs, and then when the bad guys show up, go outside and deal with them. That ain't how it's going to work. You're gonna That's going to be a very short, quick end and end in your demise. You've got to go out and know what's going on around you, and in that mindset, in that part of the MET-TC, you've got to be able to be mobile. You're going to be doing you're not out doing search and destroy operations. It's literally reconnaissance and intelligence gathering. You don't
Yeah.
want to get into a fight. You really need to get that in your head as much as you can. You want to avoid a fight at all costs. You want to be as sneaky, as quiet, as fast as you possibly can, and just gather information. The only time you want to get into a fight is when you dictate the time and location and terms of that fight. That's not to say it's not going to happen. You got to be ready for it to happen because the other guy might be better than you, but that's not your goal. Your goal is to try to avoid the fight, or it should be rather. Ours is. I'm trying to avoid a fight and just
Yeah.
gather information so that we know what's going on around us, and people aren't knocking on the front door before we realize that they're there and go, oh crap, where'd they come from? Because
Yeah.
once they're knocking on your door, it's too late at that point. You are so far behind the curve. There's a good chance you ain't gonna come out of it, and it won't take a whole lot of people to put you behind that curve either.
And John and I, we've talked about this a lot about patrolling, about setting out LPLPs, about reporting, things in your area. I mean, we've done videos on it. It's you have to do it. And like John said, whether it's in the woods or in your neighborhood, if things go, communications go down, the grid goes down for whatever reason, you're going to have to know what is going on outside your doors. And I mean, and how far out you go depends on the terrain. It depends on, are you in a built-up area or are you in the woods?
Right.
You know, it all depends on the situation, but you have got to do that. If you
Oh
don't,
yeah.
the bad guys will take you under siege. I mean, if you're just going to sit in your little house or your little compound and think everything's going to be fine and no one's going to get me, well, they'll just wait you out because you
Yeah.
got to go out and get something eventually.
Right.
So, you've
And
got to find out and push that thing out and identify it.
so Crystal makes a good point that I want to address. And so don't do your recon just yet, Crystal. We won't be doing that until the balloon actually goes up. So yes, it probably will make them a little uncomfortable if you start doing it now. So um, wait until things have gone really, really bad where making them uncomfortable isn't so much as of a concern. Wink, wink, nod, nod. As far as the other part that you said, there's this legitimately. I'm gonna just do that way. There. There's legitimately, and I know you were saying it's somewhat of a joke, but there's honestly a time and a place for both. You just got to pick and choose when do I look weak and make people draw incorrect conclusions, and when do I want to look like a porcupine? Most of the time, you probably want to look like a grumpy porcupine of just leave me alone. I'm not
Mhm.
chasing after you, but just leave me alone. If you know that they're going to come after you regardless, that's when the making them draw an incorrect conclusion of your capabilities. Make them think if it's inevitable, if I can talk, um, make them think that you're not as capable as you are, and use that to lure them into a trap. But then when you spring the trap, it's got to be Thor's hammer.
Mhm.
It's got to come down like the Almighty and as quick and violent and all that as possible. So
And those things that John's talking about, basically what he's talking about is some tactics. And you're not, when that event happens, that's too late to bring those tactics up. You need to be actually kind of talking about them, rehearsing, seeing how you're going to do those tactics, depending on what your area of operation is, or what's around you. So that's something that you need to bring up prior to that, if you got a group, in my opinion.
right, right.
So, and John and I, we talked ad nauseum about a lot of different things, and we've practiced it out in the field. So,
Yeah, I mean
got to
it's
do that, and we'll
and
continue to practice.
you gotta in your mind differentiate between the grid up everyday stuff and the grid down holy crap it's bad stuff. There's some overlap, but there's also some distinct differences as well. Um, you know, you this still applies though. Talking about just don't copy everything in my everyday. Uh, I don't just copy what the latest and greatest, you know, social media superstar, law enforcement superstar, whatever is using. I pick my handgun, my holster, my belt, my clothes. I pick all that to fit me and what I'm doing in my area and my environment, and what
Yeah.
I plan to do. Just the same as I'm going to do with a grid down stuff.
Well, I
Um,
bet, John, I bet that we, when our group, we've kind of decided on the equipment that we're going to use. Our The equipment, what we use and what we look like, isn't going to appear on a army recruiting poster, and we're not going to look like what you think that we would look like. We are reacting to our environment, and we have our own philosophy that is it is proven, and we're not beholden to any type of, hey, we got to do this because they do that. We are doing our own thing with the knowledge and knowledge base that we bring, to the table, and our environment and what we're capable of. And that's, you know
I don't, I don't have some sergeant major standing over me with the regulations telling me
yeah,
exactly how everything's got to be and what I got to do and be in uniform. I don't have to worry about, uh, like I said, the latest, YouTube super guru uh, telling me that I'm not set up right or whatever. I set my stuff up the way I need to, the way I want to fit the job and task that I want to do. And doesn't matter if anybody else likes it or approve of it or not. I do it because I know it works for me and for us.
yep.
So
And the way we know that, guys, is because we go out and do it. And you're not gonna. That's the only way. Get out there. You got to get sweaty. You got to figure it out. You got to figure out how your equipment it lays in the prone. You got to figure out. I put all this crap on. How am I going to do a magazine change? Can I get to my magazine? I mean, it's all this stuff that you got to figure out if you want to be effective. You know, I mean, you got to get
and
out and do it.
there's a lot of little things to that. Um, like for example, that's just a little micro example of using your stuff and figuring things out. Um, in a in a recent get together that we had and did a little training and going over some stuff. We had a couple of guys that were unaware. Now they are because we went over it and covered it and did it. They were unaware that something as simple, and I didn't plan this, I just happened to have it laying here, but your loud talkie thing that, for example, and maybe some of you that are watching this know this, some of you may not. So if you do know it, I ain't talking to you. But antennas like this are horizontally polarized antennas, meaning that the signal is meant to be generated with the antenna in this orientation. If you orient the radio that way, it changes the way that signal is being sent out on that radio. It can drastically affect whether or not you can talk to and or
Mm-hmm.
receive the people on the other end that you might be wanting to talk to. Now, why is this a concern? Why is this something you need to think about and have in the back of your head? Well, if you've got the radio mounted on your gear, on your backpack, whatever, and all of a sudden uh, two-way party favors start coming your direction, and you got to get down on the ground to keep from catching those party favors, what orientation is that antenna now in? You might have a hard time communicating with the folks you
Mm-hmm.
need to communicate with. That could be why, because suddenly your antenna is like this and not like this. It's little things like that that you need to be aware of, and you won't be aware of unless you actually get out and do the stuff, try the stuff, use the things, and figure out, well, Fred can't hear me over there. Why? The radios are working. Oh, it's because mine's laying on the ground like this instead of up like this. I ain't
Yeah.
getting out. Vice
And that's
versa.
a great example of getting in your area and doing it. And it may not be even party favors are coming your way. What if you've missed radio check and your SOP is now we're going to, activate the QRF to go get you? So you got to figure those things out beforehand. So
What
absolutely.
what if what if you're not taking contact? You just simply tripped and fell and broke your leg, and a tree fell on top of you, and you're stuck and can't get up. Like you're stuck on the
Yeah.
ground physically for whatever reason and can't get up. You need to be aware of that and know that. So maybe you'll be able to reach up and be able to get your radio undone off your gear or whatever so that you can orient it in the proper direction to
Yeah.
contact help. It could be something as simple as that. But if you don't know that because you haven't been out and done it and tried it and played with the stuff, you don't know. It's
Yep.
literally the classic example of you don't know what you don't know. But again, that goes with don't just copy what you see all the cool guys doing, what you see all the YouTube superstars doing, what you see world militaries doing. I know for some folks it's been popular. They like to get the antenna rerouting things, and I'm just sticking on the radio because it's there, and it reorients and can relocate an antenna that you just run through your gear and runs around. Again, that's another one of those cases where sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't. I know some folks have had good luck with it. I know other folks that have had really, really horrible luck with those. But irregardless of that, it's still a horizontally polarized setup. You go prone on the ground and you suddenly changed whether or not that's gonna work very effectively for you or not. So just copying what the other guys are doing, again, if you're copying what some tier one military unit that's kicking indoors is doing, or what the local SWAT team is doing that's kicking indoors, who are pretty much always going to be standing up in a vertical position, doesn't make sense to copy what they're doing. Whether it's
Yeah.
your gear, your equipment, your tactics, anything, unless you are specifically doing that. Doesn't mean you can't take cues and ideas from them, but don't just blindly copy what the other's doing. And then there's a lot of, unfortunately, a lot of peer pressure out there to do that. Um, you got to copy what everybody else is doing, or you're just not going to make it. You're going to die. Um, I still got a video planned, and I've just got to have time for Noel and I to get together and do it. But it's really going to set some folks off. I already know it, and I'll just tease to it now so that everybody can lose their minds ahead of time. But here's a clue: every rifle doesn't need a light on it. We'll get to that one when I get time, and
Yeah.
Noel and I can get together. But every rifle doesn't have to have a light on it. Now, you go say that on social media, on the Instagrams and wherever else, people are going to lose their ever loving minds, because every video you watch, go look through YouTube. Every video you watch where some stud is telling you how you need to have your rifle set up for bad times, every one of them is going to tell you you have to have a light on the gun. Notice I did not say having a light that you shouldn't have a light. I said every rifle doesn't need a light on it. There's a catch to that, but that's not for this
That's that. That's
not
that
for this video.
CQB cool guy stuff. Walking through the woods, that thing catch the light, it'll give you away in a heartbeat. If it catch the sun, it will give you away. Yep.
That's another thing of we'll do a video on that and get to it when we get to it, kind of thing. So yeah, exactly, Crystal. There's a lot of pearl clutching going on with that. Um, let's see. I'm trying to look at some of the comments real quick.
Yeah, me too.
Oh, exactly, Corsair. Done the same thing. Done the same thing more than once. Um, every time I freaking took that annoying 77 off and set it down, I'd always try to find some way of propping it up so that it was all erect and up in the air, because reasons.
Yeah.
Yep. Let's see. I don't want to waffle on too long. I mean, this is one of those topics we can just beat the horse till it's a complete pulpy mess. But I mean, hopefully you guys get what Noel and I are saying. Of just don't copy stuff, guys. Um, you know,
Get out there and do it and figure out what works for you. That's the bottom line. You got to get out and do it.
And separate and differentiate your grid up setups and your grid down bad time setups, because the way I've got stuff set up for in my house to repel boarders is significantly different than what I've got set up if God forbid the balloon goes up and it all goes sideways. It is two very different setups from the way I've got my weapons set up, the way my gear's set up. Everything is different. It is you don't you don't think that you've got to make everything work in both. It's okay to have two different setups. Now I know
Yep.
some people, you may not be in a situation, you may just have one rifle, one handgun, one piece of gear. I get it. And that's perfectly fine. There are ways you can adjust that and um, be flexible
Very
with it,
quickly.
be
Yeah.
modular with it, and add to and subtract from as needed depending on the situations. But again, that requires, and again, we're delving into another video topic, but that requires not being hard dedicated on certain things,
Hmm.
being willing to be modular and flexible in some things. So again, another video.
Yeah.
Um, yes, Crystal, exactly. And I'm just picking on Crystal because she's making good points as always. So
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah. The right tool for the right job. That's exactly right.
yeah, it's. I mean,
Yep.
again, you may just have a crescent wrench. That might be all you can afford. If that's the case, that's the case. You learn how to do what you can with it. You learn how to be careful with it. You learn how to make sure you're constantly adjusting it so that you're not rounding off nuts and bolts with it, so on and so forth. If you can afford an actual wrench set where you've got a couple of different wrenches to choose from for the right job, then do it. Good Lord, I'm getting messages all over the place tonight.
You're
Um,
a busy man tonight.
yeah. So anyway, um, you got anything else on that you wanted to hammer about? Not
No,
just
I mean, I think we got
do
the point across. I think, and
it.
just guys, just go out there and do it. Get your group, figure it out, learn some tactics, do a little bit of reading. I'll just say, I got because I brought these. You know, a Ranger handbook is not a bad thing to learn from. I got. If you guys ever read this, Total Resistance is not about anything but some good lessons. Um, Guerrilla warfare. All right. So Che Guevara, he. Do you know what the most important thing that he said? Most important piece of equipment he said for guerrillas were shoes.
Yeah,
Shoes. So that's a lesson learned from. He may be a bad guy, but he did it well. So you got to read, have a base of knowledge, so forth and so on.
yeah.
So
And just before anybody says it and flips out, you can actually learn stuff from pieces of crap people.
yeah.
Because
Hmm.
somebody's a piece of walking fecal matter doesn't mean that you can't learn stuff from them. Because there's some really smart walking fecal matter out there.
And it will also
Um,
help you know your enemy too. You know.
yeah,
So
yeah, absolutely. I mean, and having the proper reading material is always good. I don't have mine handy, but I'll just go ahead and give another shameless plug for my good friend Joe Dolio's books in the Tactical Wisdom
yep,
series.
I got
Um,
all of them. Yep.
but just understand, guys, whether it's the Ranger Manual, Joe's books, whatever, those aren't going to teach you how to do all that stuff.
Hmm.
Those are reference points to give you a little bit of knowledge of things that you can go out and apply and try to do. You still got to go out and do them and try it and learn the stuff. Just having the book and reading it doesn't suddenly make you good at it. Doesn't
Right.
even make you understand it. There's some of the stuff you're not going to understand until you actually get out there and start doing it. And then when stuff starts going sideways and not working and going wrong, the things that you read will start, oh, okay, that's what this meant that I read in this book,
Hmm.
that book, whatever. Don't think you're just going to go buy a Ranger manual and memorize it cover to cover and be a Ranger.
Yep.
Doesn't work that way.
Take a class with NC Scout, first, Shepherd, what have you.
Joe
Is
Dolio's
is a
doing
great.
classes now.
Oh yeah, yeah, yep,
There's
yep,
there, there's just no substitute for any of that.
yep.
Um, Let me double check. Let's see. Headcanon, no, there's not.
Yeah,
Um,
there's not.
I,
Even though we'd like
I,
to have that, but it's not. So
I've searched for that, and in 40 plus years of doing this stuff, I ain't found it yet.
it's like the perfect gun. It doesn't exist. So
No, no, um, it doesn't. Oh, what else? We're coming up, getting close to the hour mark.
yeah,
Um,
I think it's about it.
I guess kind of off topic a little bit. Um, I know you and I discussed this earlier today, but there's something that I want y'all to think about in the back of your heads. We were 0.05 seconds away from a very, very deep unknown the other day.
Mm-hmm. Yes, we
Now,
were.
it takes you zero point 0.1 seconds to blink, okay? Half the time it takes you to blink, 0.05 seconds. That's how close we were uh, from
The bloom
a
going up.
serious, a serious unknown,
Yeah.
okay?
Mm-hmm.
Um, I want you to think very, very hard about that because all day Saturday, I was working on my truck. It was a normal Saturday. I worked on my truck, got done, came in, cleaned up, got a shower, got got dinner. Um, had just kind of early because I was beat and worn out. Hopped in bed and was gonna uh, watch a movie or something with my wife. I forget what we were gonna do, and I was checking some stuff, and I just happened to click on and was watching a live stream for just a second when things happened. So I went from a normal day to all of a sudden, holy crap, am I fixing to have to start making phone calls? And I know for a fact there were some folks that, and I mean serious folks way above the mark from me that were unloading stuff out of connexes and into vehicles, waiting on confirmation of whether uh, Trump was okay or not okay. It was real. Now, I say all that to say that's just how quickly the world can change. We may or may not have a whole lot of notice in all of this, but thank God he was okay. And I say that just because I'm thankful that he didn't die. For the record, I'm not a flag waving Trump supporter. I'm a he's got some things that I like and got some things that I don't like kind of person. But there are people that are absolutely petrified of him going into office. And you have to understand the level and depth of that hatred and scaredness. There is a strong chance that they will pull out all the stops to keep him from going into office. The next couple of
Mm-hmm.
months, you need to be thinking about the ramifications of what happens if, and I stress, God forbid, the worst was to happen, because it's a real possibility. It's a very real possibility.
Mm-hmm.
And you need to be thinking about that, thinking about the potential outcomes, ramifications, and consequences of whatever may happen. So don't don't take the next 2 or 3 months. I would say don't take anything between now and January for granted.
No, not at all.
It's gonna stuck. It's gonna
Yeah.
suck staying on your toes, but you're gonna have to.
And after
Um,
that too, depending on who gets in the White House.
very, very much so. Very much so. Um, and yeah, Crystal, that's what I'm talking about. That was 0.05 seconds of that head turn that meant the difference literally between life and death. 0.05 seconds literally between where we are currently and where we could have been had
Yeah.
that 0.05 second
And
not happened.
and that event happening, you know, kind of changed my thought patterns of a lot of things too. So it's not that if the worst did happen, it would be horrible, but even because they did it, you better be aware of things can how fast things can change because they want to do it again. Put it that way.
Right. So wiretite. Um, that is one of the $1 million questions, and unfortunately, I don't think there's a clear answer because whether we want to admit it or not, the there's tons of factions out there on both sides of the aisle,
Right.
whether it's left, right, conservative, whatever. I mean, I could probably name you 8 different factional groups just on the left and 4 or 5 just on the right. And I use the
Yeah.
term right and left loosely, but it would be so factional. It would all depend on who did what to who first
Well,
and
if I can put an
how.
example on that, right now the inner city is seeing these migrants coming in, getting money, getting a place to
Yep.
stay, getting free food, and they're not Americans, and there's a huge resentment, and it could start in our inner cities, with the inner city people and the
There,
migrants, and that's not even Americans
right.
fighting.
Because piggybacking off of what Noel just said, there's a lot of inner city folks who are on the left side of the aisle, but they're fed up with the migrants taking all of their cheese,
Hmm.
and they literally see Trump as the one that's going to stop that from happening. Even though they normally don't politically align with him, they
Right.
want their free cheese back, and he's the one that's going to do it. Something happened to him, and they think that their free cheese is permanently gone. That's just one example of factions that could go sideways really
Yep.
fast.
Hmm.
So,
And that can
um,
escalate. We're going to suffer from the secondary effects of that. You
right,
always suffer from the secondary effects. And it's usually not the first, hostile act. This is secondary effects that we're going to suffer from.
right,
Yep.
and yes, even if he wins, even if he gets into office, dare I say, once he gets sworn into office, we're going to enter a whole nother phase of
Yeah,
concern
that's exactly right.
because there may be a whole lot of entities still at that point that want to try to
Mhm.
take him out, or they might not want to take him out. They may be so mad that they're willing just to burn down the whole enchilada and everybody in it in a temper tantrum. That if they can't have it, then no one has it, kind of thing.
Right.
And again, second order effects, we're still all screwed from that.
Yep.
Corsair, you're right. It won't matter where you're at. There will be a chance of it touching you, which is why even though
Hmm.
we're going to be at is pretty doggone rural, there's a reason why we put so much time and effort into the defensive measures that we do that y'all don't ever see and won't ever see or hear about because we don't talk about it and don't show it. But even with that realness that we've got, we're not naive enough to think, oh, well, we're out in the middle of nowhere, so we ain't got to
Yeah.
worry about it.
We're still going to be
No,
on our toes.
it can still happen. Um, let me let me scroll back up real quick before we start getting ready to jump off here. Um,
While you're
so
scrolling, a good example of not doing the things that you're supposed to do in order to secure certain things is the example that happened this Saturday when things didn't get secured. The worst can happen. So we all saw it live. I did.
Yeah.
And we've seen it a
I mean,
thousand times play out now.
so yeah, Peter's exactly right. They're
Yeah,
they're living,
good point. Yeah,
and they, we've talked about this in our private circle that you got to look at them right now as a wounded, cornered animal, and wounded, cornered animals can be very, very dangerous.
yeah.
DJ makes a good point. Uh, I'll tell you this: we've got three different people that were just talking Sunday morning about how grocery stores in their local areas were picked clean overnight, and
Ours were crowded here. Yep.
that was with nothing happening. Okay, that was with nothing happening, and they were still picked clean. So don't think that stuff won't be gone in a hurry.
Get it now.
Absolutely can and will. Um, look, I know we're way off the original topic of the video, but I just felt like that was something that we needed
Yeah.
to touch on before we got off because
Well, those events can affect what you do, and goes back to, what's going on in your area of operation, your equipment. So those it's actually very very good in the topic because it affects what happens to us and what
right.
the way we react and our equipment. So
Yeah, I think we'll close out on this because Corsair brings up something that I have said. I've said this on Blue in the Face.
yeah,
It's the cool in thing to do to look at the folks on the other side and see the idiots that are playing in traffic and think, oh God, our side, used loosely, would wipe the floor with them. Well, there's 2 points of that you need to be pondering in your head. Number one, understand that back to that factional thing, most of the folks you see playing in traffic are the literal definition of the Karl Marx useful idiots. They're cannon fodder. They
mhm.
aren't the ones that are going to be the concern. The ones that are the concern are ones that you don't ever see or really hear too much about. There's a lot of them over there that are just as well trained and equipped as me and you. Now, even that said, even if it's just the useful idiots, understand exactly what Corsair just said. Um, and I want to put it up one more time if I can find it. Where'd it go? Here. Understand this. Those idiots on the other side, you can be 100 times better trained and better equipped than them. They only have to be lucky one
One time.
time. One randomly fired gangster bullet over concealment, and it's the one random round that pops through your wife or child's head or your head. Might not even be aimed at you, it's just a random shot flung out there.
Yep.
They only have to be lucky. That's it. That's all they've got to be. And do not discount luck in a fight because it has a say so whether you want to admit it or not,
Hey, I'll take luck over skill any day.
which is why we don't want to be getting in these fights if we can at all
Yep.
possibly avoid it. Um, let's see. Yeah, so now you're jumping into like one of my nightmare scenarios because I've kind of been in the middle of something like that once before,
Mhm.
and
Both of us have.
yeah, it wasn't good.
No.
Uh, Peter's spot on. There was a big change Saturday morning to Sunday afternoon in a lot of stores in a lot of places.
Yep.
People got pretty spooked, and there are more and more people that are getting easily spooked along that lines. So
Yeah, Peter. So Peter, I was in Katrina day after it happened. So John was in it too. So, not Katrina, but
Physics decides to start inventing its own new laws at random times. And
mhm.
much like the standardized laws of physics that you cannot break, you can't break the weird ones that physics makes up either. So, anyway, it's been about an hour now. I think we've probably beat everything we can beat tonight because I got to get some rest and get up and
Yep.
do the sewing thing again tomorrow. Wash, rinse,
Good
repeat.
response by you guys. Good
Yeah,
conversation. Appreciate it.
we've maintained a steady crowd, so
Well,
I
good.
appreciate everybody tuning in. And for those of you that didn't tune in for the live and are watching this on rerun, repeat, whatever, appreciate you tuning in as well.
Yep. Absolutely.
Hopefully you'll be motivated to be thinking about this stuff and get out and do it and learn and practice and
You
do all the
got
things.
to.
So,
Yep.
yep. All right, guys. As always, y'all take care and go get ready.
Yep. Go
And
do it.
we'll see you.